What's up guys, it's your boy Chrysalis here, and today's video I'm going to be doing something a little different, or this is more or less a new series for the channel. So in the previous video, which I think you guys should definitely check out, I will link that in the description, I showed off a lot of my new Criterions for my collection. And I'm not going to be one of those that just buys them and just leaves them on a shelf or whatever, just accumulate dust, never to be played or whatever, just hold on to them for like some kind of collateral in case the economy crashes or some shit. I'm actually going to use them for the intensive purposes that which they intend to be used and intended to be implemented, to actually watch them. So I figured I'd do, since something occurred to me that I have enough Criterions in my collection to last about a year, and I've got actually a few more coming in the mail. I'm going to be watching one of them and then just giving you my thoughts on the movie itself, as well as just the overall packaging and whatnot. So if you're someone that was thinking about getting the Criterion version of a movie, or maybe you just don't want to bother and you just get like a standard edition of the movie, you can watch this video for a second opinion. Kind of similar to the one I did for the Wong Kar-wai box set, which if you're able to shell out that kind of money for it, you definitely should. Also a video I will link in the description below. I'm going to consider the one I'm doing now to be episode 1, and the Wong Kar-wai one to be episode 0, basically. Also, as terms of the frequency of this series, I'm going to aim to do these once a week unless something comes up. So for episode 1 of Chrysalis Reviews Criterion, this video is going to be about Punch Drunk Love. Punch Drunk Love is the 4th feature-length film from celebrated director, writer Paul Thomas Anderson, who actually has a new movie coming out in late September, which I would definitely recommend watching. As One Battle After Another is Paul Thomas Anderson's first non-period piece since this movie. One of the notable things about Punch Drunk Love is that it stars comedian, funny man Adam Sandler. Around this point in Adam Sandler's career, he's been doing all kinds of these slapstick, Gilmore-esque comedies with, Happy Gilmore, The Waterboy. I think Mr. Deeds either was about to come out or already did. And yeah, the list kind of just goes on. Adam Sandler just not really known for these serious roles, but with this movie, as well as movies like Uncut Gems, in my personal opinion, Reign Over Me, and I think as well as the movie that's coming out this year, Jay Kelly, starring George Clooney, Adam Sandler is just surprisingly really good at doing these really serious roles. Or at least relatively serious compared to, say, a movie like Billy Madison, where he's a spoiled rich kid that is now an adult that has to go back to kindergarten, and he's just doing all these unserious, raunchy shenanigans. That's more or less what I'm trying to get at. Mind you, Punch Drunk Love, if you've watched it, can probably still be constituted as a rom-com. This is still Paul Thomas Anderson. He's not going to give you this, like, oh, this funny gag every 2 minutes or whatever, this raunchy humor or whatnot. The way Paul Thomas Anderson approaches humor is a little different than what Adam Sandler is normally accustomed to doing, especially at this point of his career. The film also stars actress Emily Watson and reoccurring actor Philip Seymour Hoffman, may he rest in peace, whom also delivers a fantastic performance, even if he only has maybe 10, 15 minutes of screen time, if that. But yeah, like I mentioned, this is a pretty off-kilter romantic comedy in a way. While Adam Sandler not really a stranger to romantic comedies, with movies like The Wedding Singer. This one is a lot more esoteric. I'd say Punch Drunk Love leans more into the dramedy area as opposed to just a straight up comedy, similar to like something Alexander Payne would make. If you have not watched any Alexander Payne, movies like Sideways, The Descendants, and all that. Funny enough, Alexander Payne would also have put out a movie in the same year called About Schmidt, starring Jack Nicholson, whom ended up receiving a Best Actor nomination for the Oscars that year. But yeah, the film's about Adam Sandler, who's this guy that had kind of a rough time growing up, just having all these seven sisters and just his general upbringing being like just put into this box and trying to just be contained and whatnot. So he ended up having all these different episodes of anger just spazzing out of nowhere because he has like no healthy way of being able to just unleash that. And all this led up to him to being this small businessman who makes all these different types of plungers and I guess just sells all this miscellaneous stuff. He more or less feels alone and sad and wants to change his life, and it starts with him just wearing this iconic blue suit that you'll see him wearing for about 90% of the film. And basically a lot goes wrong for him, but also a lot goes right for him simultaneously. When he, in his moment of weakness, decides to call up a sex worker or someone masquerading about as one, and then the sex worker ends up being a scammer, or at least a big part of a scam that he didn't realize until it was too late. And while all this is going on, all the extortion and whatnot, he's trying to hide it because he just doesn't really feel like anybody would take him seriously or being able to help him, considering that his seven sisters just call him weird and they just make fun of him for everything he does and all that. In a lot of ways, it feels like all is lost for him, except that he ends up being in the company of Emily Watson's character, who is the love interest in this film. In a lot of movies, normally the male character ends up hitting up and flirting with the female character. But this is kind of an inverse, considering that a lot of ways, while Adam Sandler is craving for some kind of affection, some kind of connection, he is also simultaneously pushing everybody away. In this circumstance, Emily Blunt's character genuinely is very interested in Adam Sandler and wants to establish something with him, or at least go on a few dates with him. So instead of her waiting on him to make the first move, she just outright asks him out on the date. So yeah, I just thought that was a very interesting thing, because otherwise Adam Sandler would just be kind of just blowing in the wind and continuing to be beaten up and extorted by the business rather, that Philip Seymour Hoffman is running, which I think that ended up being, in a lot of ways, just the domino piece that tilts and sets everything in motion. Especially while this extortion, which more or less ends up serving as a metaphor for his torment and a lot of his childhood trauma and everything just accumulating to this, is going on. There ends up being a point where, because of this newfound relationship, he is able to actually stand up for himself and not directing all of his anger towards just property damage, which ends up leading to this final confrontation between Adam Sandler and Philip Seymour Hoffman, who ends up being a mattress store owner that was the head of the scam. This one final confrontation that I'm not going to go too deep into because I think you should definitely watch it for yourself. The movie is just a superbly well done, off-kilter, surrealist romantic comedy, which I think whether you get this copy or if you find it on streaming somewhere, you should definitely check out. I believe it's supposed to be coming to the Criterion channel next month, so if you already had a subscription for that, along with Magnolia, you'll be able to watch both films next month there. But yeah, the movie just does a wonderful job at, even if Adam Sandler is playing a kind of disturbed individual, the movie does a great job at presenting the beauty of his surroundings and the beauty of himself as well. The cinematography is just absolutely gorgeous. Shout out to Jeremy Blake, who was responsible for a lot of that really surrealist, flowing art that is sprinkled into the film, as well as just the blue lens flare that's in a good chunk of the film. I think that was a really good touch. The score is also amazing as well. Between that and the gorgeous musical score that feels like it flows like a dream, it's just a match made in heaven. I don't really think I can say anything too negative about this movie. I think this is just a classic. The only thing I can think of is that this probably isn't even one of Paul Thomas Anderson's best efforts. Even if it's like 90 minutes long, it still just doesn't even feel like it, period. Well, 95 minutes long, even though one of the interviews that you can watch on here, Paul Thomas Anderson says that his editor said it was 92 minutes long. So, you know, who do you believe? Yeah, the movie's just absolutely wonderful. I, again, can't think of anything too negative about it. I do kind of wish we saw more of Philip Seymour Hoffman in the movie, though. This character that is clearly serving as an antagonist. I feel like we didn't really get to see a whole lot of his character because it feels like he just appears out of nowhere and delivers a phenomenal supporting acting performance just from thin air. But yeah, other than that, that's really all I can think of. I think this movie is great. Yeah, and as far as the contents of this particular copy goes, I think it's definitely worth the money in a lot of ways, but I can see why you could opt to get the Blu-ray one instead of the 4K one, considering if you don't have a 4K player. But even then, like, you get both discs. Like, why not just shell for this if you have a Blu-ray player and you're looking to get a 4K player eventually? The Blu-ray disc has like some pretty interesting stuff in it. You know, deleted scenes. There's a mattress commercial from the mattress store in the bonus features as well, which I feel like they should have put in the movie as like something to add on to, like, again, Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, like I mentioned. But I also feel like if they put that in there, it probably would have broken a lot of the narrative momentum that they had going on with a lot of the movie being focused on Adam Sandler. Also, I want to apologize if I'm someone that does not mention characters by name. I have to watch a movie a specific amount of times in order to get the exact character down. Unless you know it's like an adaptation of like a superhero movie or like a legacy series or what have you. Because otherwise I don't remember. Barry! Name is Barry, yeah. But yeah, apart from that, like I said, it has deleted scenes, which just feels like alternate versions of already established scenes. Like one of the deleted scenes in particular was like the phone calls from the different sisters as well as visits from the different sisters, which I feel like would have bogged down too much time in retrospect. My philosophy as of late is that they are deleted scenes for a reason. There's also something called Blossoms and Blood that essentially feels like a surrealist music video, which I definitely dug quite a bit. That featured scenes from the movie and a lot of Jeremy Blake's artwork. On that subject, there's also a couple of pieces about Jeremy Blake in this copy, if you don't know who he is. If you're not familiar with Jeremy Blake, he was a digital artist that we lost way too soon. He committed suicide back in 2007. Jeremy Blake having worked with Paul Thomas Anderson for this movie, as well as other musicians and artists, the one that comes to my mind the most would be Beck for the album Sea Change, which shout out to Jeremy Blake for working on such superb artwork for a superb album. There's also this series of Scopiotones, which I didn't know what those were, but apparently back in the day, jukeboxes had like little music videos on them, and they play depending on what song you picked or whatever. And I think that was really cool to watch. It also features an interview from John Bryan about the music, which I was pleasantly surprised to see considering how much I love the score, as well as just footage from when they were recording the music for the movie. What's also featured here is an interview about someone who was an inspiration for the movie. So part of the movie is Adam Sandler trying to get all these flyer miles from buying all this food from this one specific brand that was running a promotion. So he had opted to end up getting a bunch of pudding because apparently each cup ended up counting towards like the program. And apparently that really happened. There was like a real guy that ended up doing that, and he ended up getting like 1.25 million flyer miles from just buying pudding, which is crazy. It also features a couple of snippets from when the movie premiered at the film festival in France called Cannes. Like a small little interview and then like a press conference for the movie. And let me just mention with the latter, it really felt like for a majority of it, they were just trolling. Like they were asking like all these questions and they just ended up with all these like short, nonsensical responses. And I just thought that was hilarious. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed this particular Criterion version a lot. Also, I forgot to mention, it also it's got like this little insert that's got like the cast and who all worked on the movie, like who was the director and all that. Also this like little essay from someone whose name I'm blanking on, Miranda Julie, who is a filmmaker and writer. She wrote a nice little snippet about the film. But yeah, overall I dug the hell out of this. Like, I can't say that I have like the most top of the line 4K setup, but even then the movie was just presented so cleanly and just so chef's kiss. I definitely can say if you've got the money for it, you should definitely get the Criterion Punch Drunk Love edition. Whether it's a movie that you've watched 1,000 times or if you're like me, it's a movie you're watching for the very first time. It's just a shame that the movie did not do phenomenally well back then. I don't know why it was released in limited theaters. It should have just been released everywhere. Just a classic example of studios being afraid of money, I suppose. It's not just a now thing, it's a way back in the day thing. But also, from what I understand, a lot of critics back then weren't really sure what to make of it back in the day. Especially given the fact that Paul Thomas Anderson made Boogie Nights as well as Magnolia back in the day, and now he just made a movie with Adam Sandler, who was not a well critically received actor at the time. But, you know, the movie came out and it shut everybody up. Even to this day, it shuts everybody up. But yeah, if you have watched Punch Drunk Love, what do you think of the film? And if you own that version of Punch Drunk Love, or any version of Punch Drunk Love, let me know what your thoughts are on your version of it. And also don't forget to like and subscribe and comment below and everything and all that. And yeah, that's about it. This is your boy Chrysalis here, signing off.